My name is Scott Hancock. I'm chair of the history department, and I'm accompanied by Lily Shea. She's one of our history majors. I'll tell you a little bit more about her in a moment. And so the way this is set up is you're able to respond via chat. So we have you muted for now. If somebody needs to ask something verbally, then I can unmute you by individual, but you have to let me know via the chat room. And they've done this just to make it a bit more manageable. Since we only have 30 minutes, we're trying to cram a lot into a very short period of time. And forgive me if you see me at times looking off to the other side. I'm not checking my email or anything like that, but just kind of reading from my outline so we can get through all of this. The plan is I'm going to talk a little bit about the history department, about why history. Lily will share her experience with you, and then I'll give you just some details about the history major, and then we should have plenty of time to field your questions. If you can ask them via the chat room, we'll respond verbally. And we'll also make sure that you have our contact info, so anything that we don't get to, you feel free to email us afterwards. All right, so on the history department website, the motto that we have on there is making a difference in your world means knowing why the world is the way it is. This means knowing history. The past unlocks the present and the future. And this embodies, I would argue, for a Sankofa experience. Sankofa connects a little bit to some of my areas of expertise. So my specialty is African American history and legal history and some African history. And so Sankofa is this Akan concept that comes from the Akan people who's in what is present day Ghana in West Africa. And it's a concept that embodies understanding the past so that you can have effective solutions for the present and move forward effectively into the future for your society. And I would say this is what history is all about. So we believe teaching students to tell good stories based on rigorous research, close attention to detail, while developing critical thinking skills. And doing that in a way that enables you to tell a good story will prepare you for virtually any career. I've had, in just the past 2 years, a senior engineering and systems manager at Harley-Davidson, an office manager for the mayor of Birmingham, Alabama, a vice president of an international tech company that I know, is a personal friend, a career Army officer, and others tell me that they're all desperately looking for individuals who can think creatively, who can solve problems independently and explain clearly why what they're doing matters. And these are exactly the skills that a liberal arts major at any good liberal arts schools does, and what a history major will equip students to deal with. And we think we do that well here at Gettysburg College. Some of the fields and grad schools that our students have gone into, I think, attest to that. So we've had, just within the last 10 years, including up to this year, we've had students get into grad schools such as Princeton. In fact, we have a history major now who's got a full ride to Princeton. UCLA, Mississippi, Tennessee, Johns Hopkins, Seton Hall, Yale, Notre Dame, Penn State, a host of others. They go into public history, but also they go into things like governmental studies, public administration, public policy, law school, social psychology, med school. We've had students go into OCS, Officer Candidate School for the U.S. Marine Corps. We have graduates, one who's the Chief Operations Officer for a DC polling company. Another's a planner and design preservation. We have many, many teachers in the U.S. and abroad. We've got many who work for National Park Service. In fact, the chief interpreter at the Gettysburg National Military Park is a Gettysburg College history major. We have many lawyers, one who's been a public defender in Dade County, Miami, who graduated from one of the top law schools in the country, could have gone anywhere, and this is where she chose to go. Another who's working for the the Attorney General's office in the state of Maryland, research director for the governor of Maryland, librarians. There's one who's a media relations coordinator at the U.S. Senate, violence and prevention rape counselor. We have some who are RNs, registered nurses, biological science technician on the fire ecology crew at Sequoia National Park in California, one of our more unusual ones. Granted, we don't have a lot who go into that. And as I said, many occupations, and I address this because I know that you as students and your parents understandably want to know, when you graduate from here, are you going to be able to make a living? Something I can very much relate to. This is my second career, and I went into this because I needed to know that I could make a living and wanted to equip others to do that as well, and jobs that they want and will be effective at and that will be fulfilling. So that's the postgraduate experience. To talk a little bit about the current undergraduate experience, I want to introduce Lily Shea. So she is a junior and from West Orange, New Jersey. Correct, Lily? If I'm remembering that correctly? Yeah. Also a public history and classics minor. She was a Colby Summer Research Fellow, and she can tell you a little bit about it if she likes. That's a research fellowship that provides a stipend during the summer for students. And she has been a worker in the history department and is incredibly organized and motivated and creative, helps us think of things that we wouldn't think of otherwise. So Lily, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Professor Hancock. Yes, so the undergraduate experience, I can tell you a little bit about why I chose Gettysburg, related to what Professor Hancock was saying, but also then give you a little bit of my personal experience at this school. So when I was first deciding what college I wanted to go to, Gettysburg was actually somewhere near the top, but I was still right in between another school as well. So I had already visited the college a few times, and it was my last time before I had to make my decision what college to go to. And I went to our special collections in our library. That's on the 4th floor of our library. And it's an area, we have an area on that floor of like student curated exhibits based on artifacts and documents that we have in our own special collections. And there was a handout at the end of the exhibit that was written by the student, and the student said, my intention here was not to portray people as victims or to portray people as heroes, but to provide the story of their lives and then leave it up to the visitors to learn glean what knowledge they want and come to their own conclusions on things. And so that's when I knew this is the place I have to go to, because it was their focus more was on giving the students the tools to then create their own stories, to find research, and then to create their own intellectual products. So as Professor Hancock said, last summer I got this stipend for social science students as well as humanities students, and you have a whole summer, 10 weeks, to do your own research, accompanied by a professor of your choice. I studied New England whaling in the 19th century, so really niche topic, but it was really cool because none of my courses really covered that, so I got to go to a topic that interested me. I produced an article length paper, and I'm actually presenting it in a few weeks at University of Pennsylvania as an undergraduate. So that's really, it's fantastic that I had the opportunity. I also founded our first history club on campus. So in that way, the school enables the students to find things that interest them and then actually act on that. And part of the history club is we commemorate major events. We get students that aren't necessarily history students to just engage with history in whatever way. We have trivia nights and things like that, and like president birthday parties, and share facts about historical students. I'm also co-editor-in-chief of the Historical Journal, which is an undergraduate publication for not only Gettysburg students, but students of other schools to submit their own articles, and then we publish that every year. We're trying to get ours in, even though we're not on campus. And I would say, like, so that's all kind of outside of the classroom, but then in the classroom, one thing that really makes Gettysburg unique and attests to the liberal arts aspect is like the relationship you can build with your professors, because it is a smaller school. There are mandatory office hours where the professors have to be available to talk to students, and in that way you can develop relationships. But also, if it pertains to some sort of research paper that interests you, you have a lot of freedom to pursue topics of like ranging of that range all across the disciplines. So for example, I'm currently taking a history course on the early republic, and I'm approaching early Washington through satire. And so in that way, it's like a literary approach to history, not necessarily like political or economic. So as I was saying, there's just like a lot of freedom to pursue what you want, but also to bring in interdisciplinary approaches to history as well.
Okay, thank you very much, Lily. I would love to read your paper on New England whaling.
Oh yeah.
You know, it's outside my area, but I like learning about stuff I don't know much about. So a little bit about the history major, and then we'll have some time to respond to questions that you have, things you want to know, because part of what, and I think Lily would agree with me, part of what we want to make sure is that you make the best decision for you. So to some extent, obviously, this is a little bit about us selling Gettysburg College, but what we want is to make sure that you end up where you're going to have the best experience possible. And we hope that's here, but if it's someplace else, we're happy to direct you that way. So the history department here is one of the larger majors on campus, usually between like 5th and 6th major. We haven't had quite the decline as some other places because it's Gettysburg, so we benefit from the name. But even though it's Gettysburg, we do cover the globe. We have historians who deal with Islamic history in the Middle East, with Europe, with Asia, Africa, Australia, and I don't think there's any part of the world other than the Antarctic that we don't cover in some fashion. And there are a lot of unique opportunities here. So Gettysburg College, one of the benefits of being at Gettysburg is we have a Civil War Institute, and the director of that, Pete Carmichael, who's in the history department, also through the Civil War Institute, it will be administering the Civil War Era Studies minor. And there's also the public history minor, which Lily is one of the minors for that. And there are other connections we have as well. So as Lily mentioned, the Gettysburg Historical Journal, which isn't just about the Civil War, because we're very much more than just the American Civil War or American history. There is also a journal of the Civil War era that student published. The Phi Alpha Theta Society, which is a National Honor Society for history majors, which you would find, I think, at most schools like this. And as Lily mentioned, a lot of opportunity for faculty-student collaboration. We have a few fellowships along. So the Colby Fellowship is one that's funded by the college. As Lily said, it's for any students from social science or humanities. We have a couple of fellowships that are specific to history majors funded through the history department for summer research. In fact, I have a student who has been corresponding with me who's applying for one of those this summer about a project she's going to work on, as well as Pohanka Fellowship, which is a big internship that connects students directly with the National Park Service, provides a stipend while they go work at a National Park Service site. Excuse me. Now, of course, this summer, we're all not sure quite how that's going to work out as far as what their work's going to look like, but there will still be some involvement. And there's also financial support for students who do research in senior seminars. I had a student in one of my senior seminars who got some money from the history department to go to Detroit to look at some archives about protest movements during the civil rights movement there a few years ago. And there's a lot of flexibility connection with some other majors, and study abroad is not a problem. We have many students go do study abroad. So Lily, you went study abroad, right?
I did. I went to Lancaster, England. I also did the Pohanka internship as well.
Okay. Yeah, I thought so, right. And actually the Lancaster semester in England is what I'm doing next fall. I'll be running that, assuming that, of course, it still happens. Okay, so questions you have, please let us know through the chat room. So I see one from Sophia Kenny about asking about Gettysburg, if there are opportunities to intern work at the history museums. And that the Pohanka internship is probably the best one to do that. Excuse me, but there are also opportunities that you can connect if you know of a museum where there's an internship available. You can coordinate that with them, apply for it, and receive credit here at the college. There are some guidelines. We have some guidelines for that, like there have to be a certain number of hours that you put in that are supervised, a proposal beforehand, and connection to faculty member. Another student who's doing an internship at the Boston African American History Museum this summer, and there are others as well. So your answer, Sophia, would be yes, there are plenty of opportunities to do that. You said, would this be for history majors exclusively? It depends on the internship. Like the Justin, I can't remember the last name, one of the internships, the one that I just mentioned that a student is applying for, there are some that are just for history majors, and then there's ones like the Colby Fellowship that Lily was involved in that are for history majors and others. Other question? Yeah.
I have something to add on that. Like, if you are a history major, though, the history department actively advertises various internship opportunities that are local. So if you're a major, it's more likely that you will find out about those kind of internships. But as Professor Hancock said, that doesn't necessarily mean that they're only available to history majors.
Okay, other questions, things you need to know? Okay, so Emily asked, what are the classes like? Discussion-based, usually lectures. So Lily, since you're a student, why don't you respond to that, and I can give my perspective as well.
Yeah, so they're a mix of lecture, for the most part, they're a mix of lecture and seminar. I find that, so class sizes for more like beginner courses, 100 level, maybe 200 level, that's when you get the larger classes that can be from the teens to like mid 20s. But then when you get higher up, they tend to be smaller. But regardless, it's a mix of lecture, usually introduced at the beginning, maybe the middle, and then right at the end of the course of the class. And then there is a seminar, like discussion-based seminar put in between that based on the readings the students have to do before class. And the readings are usually put in conjunction with what the professor has just introduced through their lecture. Yeah, which I find really engaging because it's never just a single thing throughout the whole class period.
Yeah, which has been challenging to do through Zoom, but we're figuring it out. Yeah. But yeah, the goal, I think, of the professors in the history department, most professors at Gettysburg College, is to push you beyond whatever the reading or videos, whatever preparatory material you did for a class session. And when in my classes, my goal is often, I want students to figure out the why question, like why does something matter? Or for instance, if they are, if they're reading I had students read a book on legal history, a short introduction to legal history in the United States. And one of the questions that I push students to wrestle with is, why did the author construct the book in this particular way? So it's important for students to know the content, and we ask questions about, okay, so what's the material to get their understanding, but also thinking about, what's the author arguing? Why are they making this argument? What are the other ways of approaching it? And what other ways of thinking about it based on the information that students have? So we're big on critical thinking skills. So I see Charles Phillips asks, is it popular to double major in history and another major at Gettysburg? I wouldn't, well, I'm not sure what the percentages are. There's a significant number of students who double major. I'd say it's definitely popular to major in history and have minors in other things. The vast majority of our majors are minoring in something. Double majors are a smaller percentage. I'm not sure if it's the majority. It would be a large percentage are double majoring. However, so it's workable. It's definitely doable. There are majors where we try not to have too many classes overlap, because then the double major becomes meaningless. But we are open to cross-listing courses. So for instance, I also teach in Africana Studies. So you could be an Africana Studies major and a history major fairly easily, because there's a couple of classes that would count for each. However, having said that, my qualification would be, so this is my own personal perspective. You talk to other professors, other students, and get theirs. I think there's a lot of pressure sometimes on students to double major, to build a portfolio so that when they graduate, they have a more impressive CV and a better chance of getting the job that they want. What I have found talking to people in grad school admissions, talking to some of the other folks I've talked to, like the office manager in Birmingham, or my friend who's a VP for this international tech company, is they really want to know, how well did you do in school? They want to know, were you well-rounded? Are you a good critical thinker? Do you know how to do research? Do you know how to use evidence? Do you know how to to communicate, those kind of things? Do you know how to communicate verbally and in writing? And I think it's less important to them to know how many majors and minors that you have. So I encourage students, if you're feeling pressured to double major, it's more important to major in one thing and do really well in it than to double major in two things and not do well in either one. So I hope that answers your question. So we encourage double majors, but I think the most important thing is find something you're passionate about, you're interested in, and do as well as you possibly can in that. And you can add something else, great, but it's not a necessity. So I don't know if you have any thoughts on that, Lily.
Well, I purposely chose a single major and initially a single minor so I could have the freedom to take any course that piqued my interest, because I thought that was like, that's why I went to a liberal arts school, is I wanted to be able to take an economics course and a philosophy course and a writing course, as well as pursue my major, and as you're saying, like do well in my major. And then it just so happens that I picked up a classics minor as well. So I highly recommend sticking with one major and doing really well with it and having fun with your intellectual life. But I also have a lot of friends I have friends that also started out with a minor and then they just turned it into another major later in their career. So that's something else you can pursue as well.
Yeah, because often some students find they only need a couple more classes for a major.
Yeah.
You have one history major who's a very good history major. He's got one of the higher GPAs in the department, who will be a senior next year with you, Lily, and he's majoring in environmental science and history, and he's doing both of his senior seminars at the same time next fall.
Goodness.
So, you know, we try not to arrange that, but that's the only way he could do it. And he's a very good student. I'm sure he'll do fine. So we don't discourage double majors by any stretch, but I think what Lily and I have said would characterize what most professors would tell you. So I hear a question, when do you have to declare your major by? That's your spring of your sophomore year. So most students are, if they haven't declared now, they're registering for classes for next year. So actually rising juniors have to register Wednesday, so they have to declare their major by tomorrow. Any other questions?
And just relating to that question, I think that was really nice too. As a freshman or first year, when I joined, as I had plenty of time to kind of test out a few classes to see really what my interest was. So I like that. I see there's another question.
Yeah, and just the last thing, but I think sometimes students also feel pressured to know what they're going to major in when they get here. And if you know what you want to do when you arrive, great. But it's kind of like what Lily was saying, is the part of the important thing about liberal arts education, whether you come here or go to another school, is get some breadth. Don't be too tightly focused on one thing. Because I keep saying, employers want people who can think broadly and deeply. You do not need a laptop in class. There are some professors actually, there are some professors who actually don't allow you to use a laptop in class unless you have a documented educational need. And there are others, I'm fine with it. My rule is if your use of a laptop becomes distracting to other students, so if you're checking your email or surfing the web and it's distracting other students, then you can't use it. But it depends on the professor. So a notebook is fine. And if you don't have the finances to have a laptop, the college can help with that. What kind of student is a history major? Good question. You recommend someone that is interested, look into or do for more information. What kind of student is a history major? Well, that's a really good question. I think someone who's intellectually curious, and you could say that about a lot of majors, but I think intellectually curious and you like stories. And I would say, if you're interested in the why question, not just what happened, but why did things happen in a particular way at a particular time or with a particular group of people? What do you think, Lily?
I was about to say those two things. What do I recommend? Just it's related to what you were saying earlier, is like, don't question the people that write that write, not like be skeptical and like don't believe anyone, but also like be a critical thinker as you're reading. That will help you a lot as a history student, because like validate your own like thinking and your own skills to like question other people's ability to argue. I'm sorry, something just came into my room. So
Yes.
I got a little distracted. But yeah, sorry. I hope that was clear what I was saying.
Questioning, exactly like you said, not in a, especially in today's overabundance of information. It's not about thinking that you can't arrive at a solid argument or that there's no truth out there. But so it's not about being cynical, but it is about being a good critical analytical thinker.
Exactly, yeah.
So Jack asks, is the Civil War studies the most popular area of the history department? I think for probably, I wouldn't say the majority of students are interested in the American Civil War. It is probably the single biggest proportion, so the biggest minority. But what we find is a lot of students come because they're interested in the American Civil War, and then after they get here, their interests go somewhere else. You know, maybe they find out that we have some students who get really interested in East Asian studies, and so they take classes with Professor Dina Lowy, and they end up taking Chinese or Japanese language, who come here interested in the Civil War. So it can vary. If you participate in study abroad program, you're able to take classes from other subjects along with history. Absolutely. And also when you do study abroad, those classes can count toward the history major, but there is a limit. So we have, it's 10 courses for the history major. 7 of those have to be here through the history department. So if you're taking AP credit, so if you take 2 AP credits and then you go study abroad, only one of those study abroad courses would count toward the history major, for instance. But that's very common for people to go study abroad, and then those courses count here. And so maybe they take 1 or 2 history courses abroad, and they take a language class, and then something else that's completely different, or whatever it may be. So that's not a problem. The classes start out under the assumption students already have an understanding of history to build on. No. I mean, if you do, that's great, but we don't assume that you have. So for instance, if you take a course on Islamic history with Professor Kerm Samji, we're not going to assume you got any background in that. Maybe you do, and that's great, and you might have a little bit of a head start with many other students. So in terms of they start with the basics as a refresher, I think with the 100 and 200 level courses, yes. When you take a 300 level course, there is, I think, more of an assumption that you have some basis in that area. But even then, it can vary. So I teach a course on law and society that I'm teaching now, and many of the students have no background in legal history. So I begin that class with some basic principles of law and legal history. And I see we're at 5:15, and I have to end because other academic departments are starting. If you have other questions, email me at shancock, all one word, SHANCOCK, @gettysburg.edu, and I'd be happy to answer your questions. And if there are questions that Lily would be better to answer, I'll pass them along to her. I'm not going to give her email out here, but I would pass them along to her, and she can either respond to you directly or respond through me. So thank you for joining us, and feel free to email me with any further questions. Sorry, we don't have more time. Thank you, Lily, for doing this.
Great, right. Thank you. Thanks for
everything. Okay, bye all. So.